They brought her at dawn because dawn looks like truth. Morning light does not flatter, it exposes. Dust in courtyards, scuffs in sandals, fear a captive tries to swallow. Jerusalem was waking. Shutters lifted, brass cups clinked, a ladder scraped stone near the temple as a mason eyed a crack. In the court below, teachers gathered their students into rings and began the day with questions. A crowd formed around Jesus as it often did. Curious faces, tired faces, faces that needed a word to steady them. Then came the interruption, a knot of men shouldering through, dragging a woman whose feet could not keep pace. Her hair had come loose, the tie was missing. She held her cloak closed with both hands. The men were Pharisees and legal scholars, the sort who cite chapter and verse and turn a citation into a snare. They stopped before Jesus and pushed her forward until she stood like an accusation. "Teacher," one of them said, the title polished to cut. "This woman was caught in the very act of adultery. Moses commanded us to stone such women. What do you say?" They said Moses because Moses has weight. The law is not only words, it is memory and covenant, mountaintop and thunder, the shape of a people in ink. The passage is flint. If a man and a married woman are found together, both shall be put to death. To stand against that is to stand under a storm. But this was not about fidelity or harm. Rome kept the right of execution, and the trap was sharp on both edges. Say, "Stone her," and they could run to the governor. Say, "Release her," and they could cry that he despised Moses. Either way, they wanted blood, his or hers. The woman kept her eyes on the paving stones because faces held too much heat. Someone had dressed her in a hurry. Dust clung to the sweat along her temple. She felt the crowd weighing stones already, not in hands yet, but in that inward arithmetic that asks not whether to kill, only when. She braced herself for the sentence to fall like a thrown rock. Jesus did not answer. He stooped and began to write in the dust with his finger. The teachers had steeled themselves for an argument, for the clatter of texts meeting like shields. Instead, they watched a man draw lines like a boy at a brook. Wind skittered grit across the letters and made them glimmer, unread. Maybe he wrote names, maybe verses, maybe nothing but time. Perhaps the point was that truth does not sprint at the pace of outrage. They pressed him. "What do you say?" Voices stacked, sharper. The crowd made room without stepping back, the way people do when they have not decided whether to be a mob. The woman watched his hand and thought, wildly, that even dust obeyed him. He stood. He looked past them at the whole ring, breath held, fists half closed. "Let the one among you who is without sin," he said, "be the first to throw a stone at her." Then he stooped and wrote again. It was not a denial of the law, it was a weight added to it. The sentence turned the crowd inward, each man suddenly carrying a stone and a mirror. The oldest understood first. Age can do the arithmetic of fault. A man remembered a debt he had called forgetfulness. Another remembered turning his face when a beggar said his name. A scholar remembered a corner cut in argument so he could win. Their fingers loosened. Stones grew heavy. They went out beginning with the elders. Then the younger men left, anger cooling into embarrassment. Dust closed over their footprints, and the courtyard returned to its ordinary sounds. Pigeons, prices called, sandals whispering. The woman remained, alone with the man who had refused to be her executioner or her accomplice. Jesus straightened. "Woman," he said, "no title beyond the one that makes a person stand upright. Where are they? Has no one condemned you?" "No one, Lord," she said, and the word Lord carried more breath than doctrine. It meant relief, the end of being a prop in someone else's lesson. "Neither do I condemn you," he said. "Go, and from now on, sin no more." There were people that day who wished the ending harder. They wanted a verdict to carry home like a tool. What they received was a mirror, and a command meant for two. The woman was told to leave the life that had wounded others and herself. The crowd was told to leave the posture that made killing feel righteous. Mercy did not shrink the crime. It exposed the common poverty beneath everyone's verdicts. The woman walked away with the crowd parting before her. She did not look up at windows heavy with eyes. Later, she would have to learn how to live again with a body that had been the site of a public trial. She would have to make 100 small choices: where to stand, whether to draw water at the well, where someone laughed, how to meet a neighbor's gaze. The sentence she had expected never fell, but the day still left marks. Freedom always does. The morning's crowd had come for teaching, not for blood. Tradesmen with work still under their nails, women with baskets and practiced patience, boys watching because boys do. They had heard he spoke with authority, healed, welcomed sinners and tax collectors and children. A few stayed for skepticism's sake. Law to them was wedding vows, boundaries, Sabbath rest, the mutual promise not to make life unlivable. Adultery was a tear in a net that held households together. They knew betrayal hurts. They also knew the taste of being on the wrong side of a rule, and the men at the front knew how to turn that taste into a club. His sentence, "Let the one without sin be first," made the rule take proper shape. The law, like a plumb line, shows true, but a plumb line does not swing itself to strike a skull. People do. And the quickest to swing are often those who forget how often the line has found them tilting. Listen to the silence that followed, and you may hear another absence. The man. The text names only the woman. Where is the partner the same law calls equally guilty? The absence indicts the crowd. Zeal for holiness can become a mask for convenience, and a body easy to drag will always be the first one chosen. Some of the teachers who left that morning walked straight into harder opinions. Others, if we are honest, took their stones back up in private and weighed them, getting to know the texture of their own hearts. A few would tell students the passage is late, that some manuscripts place it elsewhere or omit it, that perhaps it was carried in memory before it found ink. Perhaps. But stories do not stay because of footnotes. They stay because they tell the truth in the shape of a human body standing in dust. As for Jesus, he went on teaching about light and darkness, about the truth that frees, about the difference between knowing a word and keeping it. People argued because that is what people do when someone presses a bruise. Yet some could hear only the soft percussion of stones falling short. They carried that sound out of the temple like a bell whose ringing refuses to stop. There is a saying among lawyers that hard cases make bad law. Here a hard case made better people. The law remained. It still tells hard truth about fidelity and trust. The stones remained. They found uses as steps, thresholds, and weights on a tarp. But the hands that had clenched around them opened, and once hands learn that motion, they remember it. Stand there in your mind, feel the morning warm the pavement, hear sandals scuff, a cough, a dove startle. See dust rise under a finger writing words that do not need to be read to be understood. Ask yourself what you are carrying that feels like justice, but is really a weapon you find comfortable. Then loosen your grip and listen to heavy things drop to earth. Thank you for listening to Divine Crime. Subscribe for more true stories from the most dangerous book ever written.